Let's go through how to change a cam on your Kahler. What we're going to be using here is a 7300, but this applies to any Kahler cam based system. The very first thing that we're going to need to do is make sure that all of the tension is off of the springs. So to do that, we use a 5/64 Allen wrench, and sure enough, there's absolutely no tension. Using a 1/16 Allen wrench, I'm going to make absolute certain that the cam lock is disengaged. Now the springs are as relaxed as they can be. Using a number 1 Phillips head screwdriver, we are going to remove the springs. If you have a newer Kahler, it probably has this newer screw on it, on the spring tensioner. Now on the hybrid, this really doesn't matter, but on the professional, you have an option for a third spring. Using a 3/32, now we start loosening up on the sides. I do not pull these all the way out, and it's just that easy. What we need to do is remove this piece right here with the fine tuners and the string hooks. With the fine tuners out of the way, we go in with our Phillips head. And now we can just take this entire thing off with the screws still in it. Notice how the string hooks are kind of behaving oddly. That's because they are held in place by being on the cam. So you want to make sure that they go back on correctly. The next part is pulling this out. Oftentimes it falls out like it did. And now we have this cam and we've removed it. Do not mess with these bearings. They are factory friction install and they are not user serviceable. This would be a steel cam and I'm putting a black one in so that you can tell I'm doing something else. This is a professional. We're putting a professional cam onto a hybrid and it will fit. The very first thing we have to do is put our spring tensioner back in. It is easiest to put this thing in with a pair of needle nose. And note that we're angled on this side, but then it goes down and sits uniform. And it won't be able to move once we put the string hooks back on. Notice the way that I'm sliding this up to where the string hooks are all improper. This is a pretty crucial spot. On one side, we have kind of a tapered slope, and then what almost appears to be 2 dots on the end, right here, and then another one right here. Those aren't actually dots. That is the slot where this pin is meant to be seated. So when we reinstall this part that is meant to tension the springs, when we put it in like this and we put that pin back in, it should go in pretty easy, but we want to make certain that it's absolutely all the way in. That is not absolutely all the way in. I'm going to purposely install this incorrectly so you can see what not to do and why. Now what I've done is I've trapped that pin in there installed incorrectly. You can see that there's a gap right there. That's because the pin is trapped. There's still a gap over here, but much less of one. And the piece is sitting cockeyed. Not only that, but it really does not want to move. Again, you can see that it's not seated all the way in there. Now this is very easy to do. You just push it through and then you give it a little shake and it cannot move when it's in there correctly. And we can see with it properly seated, there isn't really much of a gap right there on either side. This thing isn't cockeyed and it can move freely. Now we start tightening these screws back down. Okay, now we have our fine tuners on. Everything's ready to go. So we are going to bring this back in here. Using our 3/32, we're going to very, very gently bring this in and really feel for that thing to start making a connection inside the inner diameter of that bearing. Once I feel it in there, I'll go over to the other side and do the same thing. I can feel, okay, there it goes. It just goes in nice and easy. As with everything in life, specifically with the Kahler, do not force it. If you're trying to force it, you're doing something wrong. If you're getting frustrated, set it down, walk away, take a break. Now we're good and in there with this thing. I want to make sure that we're in there enough. I won't go any further. Now the action on here is very stiff. You see that? It won't go down. That's too much. So we're just going to back it off and then give it a little bump forward on both sides. At this point, it's time to reinstall our springs, but this right here will give you trouble if you don't check it out first. You see the screw? Yeah, remember how we loosened it up when we took it off? The one on the new replacement cam is not loose. Therefore, what it will do is it will try to push the springs away. So we have to lower this down. We do that with our 5/64. Go up to this middle right there. And we just start loosening it. There we go, touching. It's important to note that the spring has a top and a bottom. This is directional, it only goes in one way, and that would be for the low side to be on the plate and the high side to be on the tensioning device. Take our number 1 screwdriver, put it through, and let's put it on the plate first. Take special note that I'm putting the screw through the spring and then going down and having this off to the side. Why make it hard on yourself? Now, there's lots of play in both of them. We'll go up here, and that should be pretty easy. Now that it's started, we can just tighten these things up. And there you have it. We've put a steel Pro Cam on a hybrid plate.